One thing I've noticed or not noticed over the last 10 or 15 years is that there doesn't seem to be many new musical genres knocking about. Throughout most of my life, new musical genres have come thick and fast. It's difficult to keep up with them all. They get quite well known. People tend to know what the words mean. You know, like rock and roll and psychedelic, glam rock, punk, disco, synthwave, dance, electronic, drum and bass, hip hop. Oh, I forgot goth as well, gothic, you know, just so they don't get offended. Anyway, loads and loads of genres. You know, I could go on listing and listing and listing. Anyway, you say the word and it immediately conjures an image in your mind as to what that music is. Maybe a band or a style or a look, you know. It all makes kind of easily communicatable sense. But over the last 10 or 15 years, I don't hear anybody mention musical genres anymore. I don't know what musical genres are big at the moment. That might just be me getting old, I don't know. But age shouldn't be a barrier to hearing what people say generally about genres, because that's sort of like a cultural thing, isn't it? I'm sure there are lots of old people in 1979 who were fully aware of what disco was and what a disco ball was. Just like I'm sure that there was lots of old people, you know, in 1989 who knew what dance music was, etc, etc, etc. I don't know, I'm trying to think over the last 10 or 15 years the new musical genres that have emerged to find their way into the public consciousness, as it were. And I can only really think of maybe, is it grime or grind? Grimecore, it's something like that, isn't it? And trap maybe, and it's sort of quite obscure things that don't necessarily get into the public consciousness because they have lots of famous bands doing lots of famous records, but they get into the public consciousness because they're just so weird sounding, really, and they're quite a weird concept. I'm sure there must be lots of genres out there, and it could be that there's millions of genres, but they're all just too small to make it into the public consciousness. Maybe you know of loads, and you're just assuming I'm old, but how many of those ones that you know are sort of like common knowledge? If you just mention them to somebody, they instantly knew what kind of general area you were speaking about, what kind of images that would produce in their head for the purposes of communication. What is the current new wave? What's the new hot thing? And not necessarily just new, anything in the last sort of 10 or 15 years will do, really. And it could be just that there's lots of genres out there, they just haven't changed. Maybe people still call hip hop. Maybe people still call country music. Maybe people still call pop music, and that's about as far as they can be bothered to go. I don't know. But it seems strange to me in that having a name for a genre is normally the way that you kind of get into a genre. By hearing people mention a genre a lot, it sort of pricks up your ears and you think, oh, what is this genre? And that motivates you to then go and have a deep dive into it and see what it's all about. But again, because I'm old, it's probably because I'm old, I don't know, but I find it quite difficult to access new music. That's something I've struggled with, again, for about 5 or 10 years now, in that whenever I go in a shop or in a restaurant or listen to the radio, they're normally playing old stuff, you know. Nothing wrong with old stuff, it's just I've heard it all before. And, you know, it's a bit boring, really. It's not exciting me in any way. And, you know, you might hear something new on YouTube or other social media, you know, if it gets really big. Yeah, it was quite difficult to avoid Uptown Funk, for example, you know, that had the magic of managing to get known even to old people. I don't know what genre Uptown Funk is. I don't know what genre it is. It's just a popular song. Similarly with Adele, or what's his name, Ed Sheeran, or Justin Bieber. You might Taylor Swift. You know them because of their name, but not necessarily a genre, as it were. I mean, that's possibly always been the case, that you've had sort of random singers that aren't necessarily genre-based, they're just famous for being singers. Maybe somebody like Tom Jones might be in that category, or Barbra Streisand, or lots of other people who don't necessarily conform to a genre but become famous singers because they're good at it, you know. But very often they will be singing in their genre, if that makes sense. Like the Bee Gees, you know, in the 60s they did pop songs, love songs and all that, but in the 70s they did disco pop songs, and it was noticeably different. You describe disco music, you would say, oh, the Bee Gees did great disco music, but all of their catalogue wasn't disco music. You know, it was the same for the singers. They were sort of like sing within the genre of the day, as it were. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what genres they're all the current big names are following or leading, really. I suppose it's similar to Madonna, really, I suppose. It's difficult to put Madonna into a genre, and she tended to move with the times, and she was a bit of a trendsetter and quite unique in it. So maybe, you know, maybe the people I hear about are just those kinds of people that aren't necessarily part of a genre, and historically that kind of character never has been anyway. So maybe I'm looking in the wrong direction. But how do I find out about new genres without already knowing about them, if that makes sense? Who's playing them? What radio stations play them? And, you know, radio is a sort of declining medium anyway, in that you only really listen to it on the way to work in the car, and, you know, it's luck of the draw if they're going to be playing a new music and expressing what kind of genre it is. I don't know on one channel. But most of the channels that play music, they all just play the old crap. You spin the dial looking for some new music and it just never turns up, you know. And yeah, as I say, in the shops they just play whatever easy listening their algorithm says makes people happy shoppers. When you talk to people, it's like music doesn't really come up very much anymore. You look around at the young folks to see what fashions they're wearing and whether that indicates some kind of musical genre. And there aren't really any clues. I mean, punk was always fairly obvious that that was a music-inspired cultural genre choice. Same with goth, and the ravers, they all kind of look a bit the same, but you look at the youths, to get an idea of what the big musical genres are, and there's nothing really noticeable in the fashion that suggests that they're modelling themselves after a musical genre. Yeah, so I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, if it even exists, if this sort of dereliction of musical genreing is a thing or not, really. It's just something I've observed, so I thought I would share. I'd love to hear about all the wonderful niches that exist. You know, when I sort of say new musical dramas, I mean big new musical genres that can really, like, not just lead you to 3 or 4 independent bands that 3 or 4 people know about, but cultural genres that represent the generation, as it were, that can have enough mass to generate enough cream to produce lots of really nice music that I'm not aware of. It might just be that we've run out of new genres and people are just continuing the existing genres. As I say, hip-hop is still hip-hop, is it? I don't know. Maybe there's subcategories of hip-hop, for example. But like, if you went down the top 40 or whatever and tried to assign each one to a genre, or if it doesn't have a genre, no genre, you know, just famous person. You know, how many genres would you get? Are any of them new? Trying to work out if it's a good thing or a bad thing, really. I mean, music doesn't need genres. Music's a very personal thing anyway, I suppose. It's about finding music that you like. But trying to find new music is very difficult when you don't know where to start. If you're not like into it and following it every day, how do you get your recommendations? And it's like, as I say, there's sort of like the last big famous song that was like a massive earworm was like Uptown Funk. That's like 10 years ago now, and there's got to be more to it than that. I can't imagine the music business is just rolling on big names, genreless big names. Maybe it is, I don't know. Yeah, but I'm interested to find out if you know a good new genre that's big enough to produce lots of cream that you think my ears would benefit from listening to. Let me know how you found out about it, or where to go to keep your finger on the pulse of what genres have existed over the past few years and all that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, does it even matter that genres don't exist anymore? Everything's become so niche that almost every single group of 2 or 3 similar sounding noises are their own niche, and there's no one, like, everybody's kind of trying to mimic that to stay on the scene kind of cultural genre, as it were, or big rebellious new genres trying to push the old hats out the way. I suppose it's a video maybe suggesting that, has music got a bit stale? I'm not confident enough to make a claim that music has got a bit stale, but I don't know, I suppose from a bit of an outsider's perspective, because I'm just old, and I don't deny that. Is society missing musical genres? Is that something that's having a negative effect on society? I don't know. Maybe. I'm going to go and quickly check now the top 40 now I've said that. Have a look at the genres, and then I'll get back to you. Right, so I'm looking at this current UK top 40, Billboard 100, whatever you want to call it, and it's all just repeats of old Christmas songs. So I'm not really getting any clues of that. It's like, we've got fucking Shaking Stevens from 1985 or whatever. One of his Christmas songs isn't like number 13, so that's not very helpful at all, is it? And Wham! Number 1 with whatever his Christmas song was. I can't remember. The Pogues and, you know, all this old shit. Yeah, so probably the wrong time of year to be double checking on that. But I had a look at a lot of the big singers, and, you know, the Taylor Swifts and all that, and Ray and all that. And when it's listed under genre, it's just sort of like pop, R&B, soul, funk, all these generic labels that can apply to, they're not really genres as such as they are musical styles, which is a different thing altogether. You know, might as well just say jazz. Yeah, so having no luck, having a brief look at the old top 40 there. Bad time of year, plus the fact that didn't know where to start really. But yeah, let me know. Tell me some modern musical genres that really typify the 20s of the 21st century.